Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 427, I'll Clutch and Clutch. She will use this word clutch in 8 different poems, and this is an interesting poem for a number of reasons. It's another one of those almost like riddle poems. There's a lot of debate about this poem and what it is that Emily's actually referencing. 2 scholars differ in terms of their view. One is Judith Farr, who argues this poem is about Emily's love or affection for Sue. Ruth Miller, the great scholar, has pointed out she thinks this is about another poem about poetry, and more particularly about Emily's poetry. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you've worked through the preceding 426 poems. We just finished with 426. It doesn't sound so terrible. It don't sound so terrible. And if you have done that reading with all those earlier poems, you'll be able to place this poem at least closely to 1 or 2 other poems that we've seen, depending on how you interpret it. Guys, I'm going to leave a lot of that up to you. I'd like you to notice the royalty language. Can I use that phrase? The royalty language of this poem, and of course even some economics language as well. We've seen that before. I'll clutch and clutch. Next one might be the golden touch. Could take it. Diamonds. Wait. I'm diving just a little late, but stars go slow for night. I'll string you in fine necklace, tiaras make of some, wear you on him, loop up a countess with you, make a diadem and mend my old one, count, hoard, then lose, and doubt that you are mine to have the joy of feeling it again. I'll show you at the court, bear you for ornament, where women breathe, that every sigh may lift you just as high as I. And when I die, in meek array, display you, still to show how rich I go, lest skies impeach a wealth so wonderful and banish me. Now, you noticed, guys, did you see it? All of the dashes. In fact, this poem has maybe more dashes than almost any other Emily poem. It's quite remarkable. And it makes the poem, and you could even hear it as I was reading it, at times difficult to know, do you pause for each of these dashes, or do you just go ahead and read much of the lines as if the dashes are not there? I'm going to leave a lot of it to you to decide. Notice, though, she'll begin by saying, repeating herself, I'll clutch and clutch. And then she'll say it. Next one might be the golden touch. Now, again, I like the use of the word might here. When we get to poem 696, it will be acres of perhaps. Emily is speculating on what will be maybe the next one. Now, again, if you read this poem as Emily's love of Sue or love of someone, that's one way to read it. Another way to read it is Emily is celebrating the possibility that the next poem might just be the poem, if you will, right? She says it this way. She says, it could take it, diamonds, and then she'll say, wait, as if she's kind of coming up with the thought. I'm diving, and again, this is, are we talking about love? Are we talking about writing, right? I'm diving just a little late. I told you guys about our use of the word little in 171 poems. But stars go slow for night. Now, for those of you who like the idea that Emily's talking about the poetry that she has been writing, notice the word picture here. In other words, it may take a while for me to find the golden touch, right? Of course, as we're reading these poems, it seems like every poem has the golden touch, doesn't it, right? Obviously, many of her poems never make it into anthologies and the like. An example would be this poem. And yet, I find this a remarkable poem, especially in terms of the imagery now. So she goes from diving, we've seen this with the Malay diving just a couple of poems ago, I'll string you in fine necklace. Now again, how you define the you of this poem, is it Sue or is it her poems? I'll string you in fine necklace. We know that Emily herself put her poems in certain kinds of little compilations, and she hand-stitched them together. Tiaras make of some wear you on him, by the way, you'll remember him from poem 414. Loop up a countess with you, make a diadem, and again, all of this royalty language, and mend my old one, right? In other words, this could be editing the old poems, if you read it that way. Count, hoard, then lose, and doubt that you are mine, to have the joy of feeling it again. Miller has argued that this is Emily. She writes all these poems and she puts them away and then she comes back to them and maybe she's moved by what she has written. I'll show you at the court, again, all the royalty language, bear you for ornament where women breathe, that every sigh may lift you just as high as I. And of course, this is a fun poem to read out loud for the sounds, no doubt. When we get to poem 1176, by the way, her use of the word high, she'll say, we never know how high we are till we are asked to rise. And again, this idea of being high for her, elevated in some way. And again, the Countess comes back. And when I die, in meek array, we're back to costuming again, and of course her use of the word meek, display you. Now, for those of you who find this to be Emily's writing about her poetry, then this makes sense. What's she going to argue? That long after she's gone, she believed that her poetry would be read, and obviously we're proving that prophecy to be true. Still to show how rich I go, lest skies impeach a wealth. Notice go from rich to wealth. So wonderful, and banish me. Now, again, this idea of banishing suggests that maybe she has a bit of concern that it isn't going to work out the way she had hoped. At 2a, what are we going to do with this poem in terms of a message? I think her argument is that wealth is related in many ways to what you value or to what you hold dear. At 2b, the royalty language as well as the economic language comes to mind. At 3a, I'd like to think a little about Shelley's defense of poetry and potable gold, as he will call it. The idea that poets create this amazing stuff that somehow lives beyond the poet. I also want to think of Czesław Miłosz's A Treatise on Poetry. You guys will maybe remember that Miłosz will argue early on in that treatise that a single set of lines can carry more weight, he says, than a whole wheelbarrow of prose. Finally, at 3b, what is it that you hold as dear as what she's referencing? And how do you read this poem? Do you read this as she's referencing a lover or she's referencing her poetry? Thank you.